Okay, hi, welcome. This is the first episode of Blue Northern. I have been a nurse for a little over a year, and one of my friends is actually trying to get some of her classes out of the way to go into nursing school. So I just thought I'd make a couple videos just to kind of offer some tips, some just suggestions, and kind of help her out a little bit. Um, so I think one of the biggest things, like even before nursing school, that you should pay attention to is just some things with like stress management. Um, Definitely get into some good sleep habits before nursing school because once you're in nursing school and you have your clinicals and stuff, it's getting an adequate amount of sleep can be a challenge at sometimes, especially if you're in situations you find a little stressful. So I just have a couple tips. I would recommend that you develop like a sleep habit and um, kind of like a particular way about you develop the sleep habit. Um, have like a smell or like a ritual that you do each time before bed, and then do it consistently so that when you are in a stressful situation, you can go back to this habit and it's automatically going to put you in the mode to get you sleepy and um, just get you in the setting and everything so that even though you might be stressed out and you might have some challenges sleeping, because you have the habit, it's already gonna kind of like put you on the pathway to fall asleep. And I would just highly recommend it. It's something that I'm still trying to work on, but with the progress I've made, I'm very happy with it. And it's one of the top tips I would recommend. Tip number two, I would recommend that about like an hour, 2 hours before bed, start winding down. Once you're in your curriculum, it can be, you can like definitely, uh, what's the word? Like, you can let's just kind of like get it stuck in your head. I have this exam to study for. What's going to happen if I don't do this exam, if I don't pass well on it? And then you can just kind of like get in the mode where you're just going over and over and over and over. And it can be really hard to turn off and go to sleep. So just get in the habit of like 2 hours, just whatever you're doing, turn off. Like if you're studying like med surge, or if you are studying like anatomy and physiology, you just have to stop and then do something completely different. Um, Whether it's like a TV show, reading a good book, doing like a computer game or something, just knitting, just do something completely different. Take a walk outside if you have to. And that'll just help get those thoughts out of your head so that when you do lay down, you don't have to deal with processing them, because once you go to sleep with those thoughts still in your head, they have a habit of running treadmills. Let's see. Tip number three. So, um, one other tip that I would recommend is, and this kind of falls back with tip number one, is that about that habit. Um, Sometimes if you introduce like a aroma, like if you like aromatherapy, if you introduce a scent, then what that does is it triggers like a pathway in your brain so that you're kind of like going down that mode, that pathway to sleep. So one thing I would recommend is like, like maybe like you start using peppermint oil, like put a little bit of peppermint oil in like a vase beside your bed, and then just do that like every night, like 15 minutes before you fall asleep. And if you do that in a non-stressful environment, like before you go to school, then when you're in your classes and during your clinicals and eventually when you start working, it's going to be much better to fall asleep because you're already you're already doing things that set you up for relaxation. And because it's a habit, sleep becomes part of the habit, and you have a little bit better of a time with that. Let's see. What other tips can I suggest? Um, for number four, sometimes people can be deficient in certain minerals or vitamins, like calcium and magnesium are two big ones. So if you already have an underlying deficiency there, maybe go to your doctor and just like ask, like, is a magnesium or supplement something I should be considering? Is a calcium supplement something I should be considering? Um, and like even if you don't want to take supplements or anything, and for some people it's not recommended, um, take a like you can take have a banana, a handful of almonds, and like a glass of milk like right before bed. That's a good combination. And it gives you a little bit of a potassium, magnesium, and calcium. So that's kind of a good bedtime snack. Um, and then I guess number 5 is don't go to bed hungry, and also watch what you eat right before bed. If you're in classes and then everyone wants to like go out for tacos or something, sometimes people find that if they eat a meal that has like garlic or high in spices, it can cause gastric reflux disease, GERD. I mean, like not too common in younger people. It can happen in younger people. Mostly it's in older people. But if you're dealing with some stress, then those extra spices they can make it a little bit harder to sleep. So, and then speaking of stress, some people actually do develop ulcers in nursing school just because of all the stress. So just try to be gentle with your GI tract, your stomach. Try to like make sure that you're eating foods that are going to be um, kind to your stomach. Like stay away from alcohol. Uh, don't have a lot of spicy foods. Make sure you have a balanced diet, like leafy greens, whole grains, lean meats. Those are all really good options. Omega 3s are good, like fish oil tablets, flax oil. Those are all good nutritional choices that you should consider at least. Enough water, big deal. If you're dehydrated, you're gonna have frequent headaches, and that can help. That can hinder your ability to think during some of these exams. When I was in nursing school, I would have headaches like probably like every other day, and like it can be a couple different types of headaches. Like you could have migraines, you could have tension headaches, and then I believe like there's another one called like cluster headaches. And those are all different variations, but some of the causes behind the headaches, you can have a headache because you're dehydrated. With the tension headaches, you can have headaches just because of all you're so tense. And then going back to the aromatherapy, if you have like a little bit of the like peppermint oil and you like dilute it with a little bit of like coconut oil or mineral oil and just kind of like rub it on your muscles, that can help relax them a little bit. Deep breathing is very good. If you haven't looked into deep breathing, then that's something I would recommend. There's plenty of really, really good videos on YouTube that go through all the processes of how to do deep breathing. And then a third type of headache that I kind of dealt with in nursing school was also sugar. If your blood sugar levels are too high or too low, you can have headaches. And one of the best ways actually of dealing with the sugar headaches is limit how much sugar is in your diet. So easier said than done, and I've gone through the process of eliminating it and then bringing it back in my diet and then trying to eliminate it again. But when you cut out a lot of the processed foods, you cut out a lot of the sugar that's hidden in your foods that you don't even know is there. You don't even know it exists. You can't taste it, but it's there. I've made the habit of looking at the nutritional labels when I go shopping, and I'm like surprised how much sugar, like 23 grams of sugar in cereal, like 5 grams of sugar in lunch meat. You know, there's a lot of sugar that's hidden in our foods that we might not even taste. And before you go into nursing school or before you start working as a nurse, anything that's like high stress, eliminating some of this sugar in your diet as much as you can will help with reducing how many headaches you have. It'll also help eliminate the brain fog that you experience at times. And if you, they've actually done studies in people that have a lot of sugar in their diets, like sugar processed foods, they don't do as well with stress. So stress management, reduce your sugar. It's kind of a thing. So something I would definitely recommend. I think that's pretty much all the tips I have. Just like wellness tips before you want to go into nursing school. Um, a couple things about just a couple things to keep in mind. When you're taking your prerequisite classes, depending on which nursing school you're going to, it can be very, very competitive. So I would just be very careful about who you pick as your friend. I personally, when I was doing my prerequisite classes, I didn't try to like buddy up with anybody or study with anybody. I was just kind of assuming like the people they want to kind of get to know you and stuff, maybe like find out your weak spots or whatever, maybe like, have you goof around a little too much, and then maybe you don't do as well on this exam or the A&P like 2 final or something, then it's like one less person that, that's in the competition. I now I honestly don't think that like everybody's like that, but I do think that there are cases where being a little cautious of that is to your benefit. And then of course, anyone that's been through nursing school, you also know that just like in nursing school itself, there can be quite a bit of drama. So as much as possible, just try to keep to yourself. If you have like somebody that you've grown close with, and you guys want to study, person's smart, I'd say yeah, go ahead. But just um, it's more of a caution with like all like the small talk and the chatter. Just try to avoid it if you can. It doesn't benefit you, and more often than not, if you get mixed up with these people, if there is a big situation, it can it can come back to your it can come back to hurt you a little bit if you're not careful. And like I said, I mean, it's kind of known in nursing school. There's going to be a little bit of drama, so just try to just nursing school. It should be about studying, getting your classes done, getting your degree, and graduating. You're not there to make friends. You can develop lifelong friendships in nursing school, but that's not your priority. And if you find out that you're not the most popular person in nursing school, that is 100% okay, and that might even be to your benefit. Just basically don't um don't feel down about it, because it's not what you're there for, and you are going to have to work so hard in school. It's not worth feeling down about. So yeah, so sleep, stay away from the drama. um let's see, what else is important that I'd like to mention. uh Probably just like something else is HIPAA. So HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act. And if you don't know about it now, you are going to pretty much have it memorized before you graduate. So basically, it's kind of like the privacy rule, I guess is the best way I would describe it. It basically gives rules about how patients' healthcare information should be accessed, shared, who should be accessing it, and so on. So the biggest thing with this, and I would try to like start incorporating it into your activity and like your life before school, because it's going to be so much easier after, like if you make it more of a habit before you go into school. So the big deal with HIPAA is anybody who's not involved in the patient's plan of care should not have access to the patient's healthcare information at all. So, name, date of birth, like diagnosis, like anything that would identify the patient, that is like confidential. Like everybody has their privacy, everyone deserves their privacy, decency, kind of all in the same sphere. So, when you're going to go to clinicals, and especially some of these clinics, especially if they're OBGYN clinics, they are going to be very, very strict about this, that you do not share the patient's name, their age, date of birth, and like anything that would identify them outside of clinicals. And anyone that's not involved in the patient's plan of care, like even if they're in the healthcare like setting, like environment and stuff, they shouldn't know about it either, because it's not, they don't need to know, basically. So and the reason I'm kind of like mentioning this now is because I had this one clinical. I kind of like walk in, I'm like, hi, how's it going, I'm here for a clinical. And she's like, I just want to be very clear with you that if you don't follow the HIPAA guidelines, you can be criminally prosecuted. And I was like, okay, okay. But it's just some clinics, and some like healthcare environments, they're very, very strict about this, because it's their patients put a lot of confidence in them that their healthcare information is going to be respected. And like, I mean, like, just think of it, if you went to the doctor and maybe like you have like some kind of a contagious disease or something, or like condition that could affect your job, would you want anyone else to know about it? Would you want that to be shared? Of course not. So you just keep that in mind, that people want their privacy respected, and be mindful of what information you find yourself sharing on a daily basis, and then just try to make sure that you're obeying some of the HIPAA laws before you go into school, and then you aren't going to run a huge risk of accidentally sharing that information. And then when you do have these clinicals where they are very like, you have to watch out, don't say anything, you're not going to be taken so off guard by that, because you realize how vitally important it is that this information is protected. So like, don't ever photocopy any patient's charts, like medical records, anything like that, not to be photocopied unless like you're sharing it with another facility. So let's say, just for an example, Mr. Jones comes in and he has a colonoscopy, and then the results have to be faxed from hospital A to clinic B. You would be able to take a fax of that the exam findings, and then fax them to that other facility. You just have to use a cover letter, but that would be appropriate. And I believe in some case, well, I don't really work with insurance, but I think in insurance cases you can send information as well. But you wouldn't want to like take a photocopy of like a patient's chart if you're doing like clinical paperwork. That would be against the rules. You'd want to like write down what's important, and then make sure that you're not, bring home like the name, date of birth, anything like that. Just kind of like leave it alone. Let's see what else. And then also, like, if you're dealing with patient phone calls, you don't want to be like, oh, let's say for an example, Sally calls up. She's like, "Hi, my name's Sally. My mom's Roberta. She's in room 478." You're like, "Oh yeah, hi Sally. Your mom's doing great. And the test went well, and her labs are blah blah blah. You don't want to do that because first of all, how are you gonna know if Sally's really Sally? Second of all, how do you know that Sally and Roberta are on good terms? You don't. You honestly don't. It could be that Sally is they have like some kind of a like an off relationship. They don't have a very good relationship, and Sally is very controlling and wants to know everything about what's going on with Roberta. So by sharing Roberta's information with Sally, you're actually violating the HIPAA regulations there. What you would do in a situation is you would put Sally on hold, and then you would talk to Roberta and be like, "Hey, Roberta, your daughter Sally's on the phone. She wants to get an update on you. Is that okay?" And then she could be like, "Oh yeah, sure. It's my daughter. We talk about everything all the time." And you're like, "Okay, well, you know, it's not wasted time. You're just being very cautious." And there are situations where family members or patients don't want family members knowing about their healthcare stuff. So, and then in some facilities they'll have a code. So if you're working one of these facilities and the patient's like, "Yeah, anyone that I want my information shared with, they're gonna have a code," then let's say Sally calls up and she's like, "Yeah, I want to hear about Roberta, how she's doing, her updates and stuff," and you'll be like, "Okay." You pull up the patient's chart. What's the code there? You're like, "Okay, okay, Sally, what's the code?" And she's like, "Code? Uh, I don't know. There's a code." You'd be like, "Okay." Then you know that that's not someone you'd be sharing healthcare information with. Or like, "Hi, this is Sally. I'm here to get my mom's information." You're like, "Okay, what's the code?" And she's like fishing ducks. And then you're like, "Okay, fishing ducks. Okay, yeah, she's doing great. Her blood creatinine, they're dropping lower. Her kidney function's improving. And you can go on. But you just kind of want to be careful, because you can have kind of like bad situations develop, and you can be releasing information to people that aren't who they say they are. And like, well, think of another case. What happens if you have like a woman on OB, and she's given birth, and she's in an abusive relationship, and she's hiding from her boyfriend, her ex-husband, or whatever. She might be hiding, but this guy might kind of know like when her due date is, and like call up some hospitals and just be like, "Oh yeah, how is she doing? That's my lady, and that's my baby and stuff, whatever." And if you don't talk with the patient, you're not gonna know, and you're gonna be telling this guy where the lady is. So you gotta. I mean, most cases it's okay, but it's always those cases when it's not, that it's a really big issue. And like I said, everyone wants their privacy respected. So just being mindful. And when you're done with clinicals, you don't have to go and like talk with your friends like, oh yeah, we saw this guy that had like, like one eyeball in the middle of his forehead, and he was like puking everywhere and stuff. You don't want to do that because not everybody has an eyeball in the middle of their forehead. It's going to be noticeable. If they see this person walking down the street, they're going to know some information about them because they're recognizable. For certain health situations in the hospital, like if it's rare, you don't want to talk about it because, everyone's going to know who you're talking about, especially in smaller communities. It seems like everybody knows everybody and like what's going on with everyone. So it's always just a really, really good habit if when you're dealing with clinical situations and when you start working, that whatever you do at work, it stays at work and you're not like broadcasting it or talking about it a whole lot because you never know who knows. So like you could be in the elevator, talking with another nurse, like, yeah, that patient and 726, what a jerk, and stuff, and like always crabby and this and that and stuff. And then you're like, oh yeah, and like they have this like huge like sore on their foot and it's just not going away. But then also in the elevator, you might have the patient's family member, or you could have another hospital worker who is related somehow to this patient that just from the description knows who you're talking about, and that's not like appropriate. So it works best if you follow the HIPAA guidelines, and it's you sharing the healthcare information with interdisciplinary team members. That includes like the doctor, respiratory therapist, dietitian, social worker, um, just like anyone who's involved in the patient care, anyone who's on the interdisciplinary team, which just means like all different people taking care of the patient. If it's related to to the patient care, you can talk about it with them. Otherwise, try not to share it. I mean, it's just best practice that way. And then don't bring names, uh, years, like how old they are, birth dates. Just forget that. You'll probably remember their face, and then you don't have to worry about that. Like if you see them like later or like next year they get admitted again, just you don't have to worry about remembering their names. It's just keep it private basically. Um, Another thing that's really important is you don't know who you're taking care of, and you only work with them for a short time. You don't know what kind of a person they are, and it's just better if they know just like a limited like a limited amount on you. And what I mean is it's you're not supposed to share your last name with patients like, oh yeah, oh, hi, my name's like Susie Liz. You wouldn't want to do that because they're gonna know that you work in a hospital. They're probably gonna be able to guess like your age if they had like an age range. And then like if you have social media accounts, they might be able to find you, stalk you, depending on like, what goes on at the hospital and what kind of a person they are. If things are going badly for them or if they feel like they've been, their case has been mishandled, they might, like, not everybody. We have some great patients, but like you might run into like a once in a lifetime case where this patient wants to find the nurse that took care of them and cause them some harm or cause them some grief in some way. Then you have a bunch of patients that are just like friendly as ever and great people, honestly, great people. But it's not professional to have any kind of relationship with patients outside of the workplace. It's just it's kind of like an ethical thing. Like you take care of them and that's your job and you get paid to do that. But that doesn't mean that you have to you like it doesn't mean it's appropriate to develop a friendship with them because you're paid to care for them. But sometimes feelings develop where they're very grateful and like like maybe they're like, oh yeah, it's you took care of me, it's so great, I want to be your friend. But the thing is, we're paid to work, we're paid to care for these people, and it should be professional and end there. Sometimes manipulation can happen if that isn't kept in check. So like it helps the patient, it protects the patient, and it protects the nurse. So we're by limiting how much interaction we have with patients outside of work. If something doesn't go very well, or if we take care of a patient that might be a little bit um, like like scary, possibly questionable, whatever, then we kind of eliminate that like in other words, like we take care of them, we go home, and that's it. We don't have to deal with it anymore. But then if you have like a patient that's like very very grateful, very sensitive, very helpful, um, it's not professional to have relationships with them outside of work, because they're always going to be wanting to do things and like be nice to you, but they don't have to do that because we like we're already paid for taking care of them. Because it's our job. If that helps clear it a little bit. So just kind of something to keep in mind when you're going to school. So you don't really want to, like, if you're a really really friendly person, you're like, oh yeah, my name's this and that, my last name's that, I live, you know on Cherry Lane, by the big plum tree. You don't really want to do that. And it's not being mean, it's just being very professional, and professionalism helps in so many different situations, in so many different ways, and you don't even realize how valuable it is when you're in nursing school. And even like in the first couple months of working, you don't even realize how valuable it is, and how much like grief it saves the patient, and it helps you, and it just try to abide by the HIPAA regulation and maintain professionalism as much as you can, because it'll definitely help in the long run. So anyway, it's almost like 30 minutes, so that's kind of a long video, but just I think these are some really good tips. And um, you know, I wish I would have paid a little bit more care to the sleep aspect of it, and just realize that some of the people, when you like the facilities, when you are doing your clinicals, they are going to be, I wouldn't say like if you walk in there, it can kind of seem like they're going to bite your head off about all these regulations and like intimidate you with all the forms you have to sign. But there's a lot there to like protect the patient, and they can get sued if information's improperly released. So they're just trying to protect their patients and keep accidents from happening, and keep confidentiality at as much as they can. So no hard feelings there, and just if healthcare is kind of new to you, this is something that you can expect, and it's just it's normal, and you'll get used to it. And the sooner you can work on it, the better, especially if you're a very talkative person. It'll just help you so much. So might do some A&P, maybe some like simple pathophysiology in the next video. I'll kind of see how much time I have and kind of go from there. But I just wanted to get some basic fundamentals like put in place, because I think that when I started school, these were the things I focused on first, and it really paid off, because I didn't have to like worry about learning them again like later on. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a good starting base. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video, and take care. And oh yeah, one other thing, very important. Nursing school sometimes will feel like you'll feel like you get kicked around like a tin can in the wind. So one of the best things you can do, like, you're not going to be able to control all the circumstances. You're not going to be able to control how well you do on the exam. Like, I mean, you can try to study as hard as you can, but that doesn't guarantee you're going to do great. One of the biggest things that you have control over is your attitude. Your attitude and how you treat other people. So whatever the situation, whatever you find yourself in, whatever mess you find yourself in, keep your attitude positive. Always find something to be optimistic about, and treat other people with decency. Treat other people professionally and how you'd like to be treated. And that'll just help you so much. It will help you so much. It will. Alrighty. Bye bye.